Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Office of Consumer Credit Commissioners stakeholder meeting to discuss the rule review for pawn shops. My name is Matt Nance, and I'm the OCCC's Deputy General Counsel. I'm joined by several members of the OCCC staff, including Commissioner Leslie Pettyjohn, Licensing Team Lead Kenesha Daniels, Supervising Examiner Christine Graham, Assistant General Counsel Audrey Spalding, and our Senior Paralegal Ginger Harmon, who's acting as our meeting organizer. We're holding this meeting through an online webinar, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. Getting input from stakeholders is a really important part of our rulemaking process, and these meetings help us make sure we can produce the best rules possible. Our webinar platform is GoToWebinar, and some of you might be listening on your phones, some might be watching on your computers, some may be doing both. If you're watching on a computer, there's a questions window where you can submit comments to staff. If you're having technical questions about using the webinar, you can type them in that area, and Ginger will try to answer those. We're discussing a pre-comment draft of rule amendments that's available on the OCCC's webpage for recent and upcoming rules. On that webpage, you can see the draft rules by clicking on the link for Pawnshop Rule Review. If you have any comments on the rule amendments, you can go ahead and type those in at any time, and I'll be getting to those in a few minutes. And if you're on a computer with a mic, there is a function allowing you to raise your hand, and then we can let you make a comment verbally. We're talking about rule amendments that come out of a process called rule review. The Texas Government Code requires state agencies to review their rules every 4 years to make sure they should still exist and to make any necessary updates. And when we do that, we try to get input from stakeholders on whether the rules should be updated. The rules governing pawn shops in Title VII, Chapter 85, Subchapter A of the Texas Administrative Code are currently up for review. So I'd like to first summarize these rules and then lay out the proposed timeline for the rules, and then you'll have a chance to provide comments. In this draft, we have 6 different sections with proposed rule changes coming out of rule review. In Section 85.202, we'd make some changes relating to the application for a new pawn shop license. We'd remove the requirement to list a responsible person and replace it with a requirement to list a compliance officer. This would allow pawn shops to identify someone who can be contacted on a company-wide basis and would remove some language we thought was unnecessary, suggesting that the person needs to be an owner or licensed pawn shop employee. Another change in this section would remove language suggesting that license applicants submit their fingerprints directly to the OCCC, since those fingerprints are currently provided to a party approved by the Texas DPS. In Section 85.301, we'd have a similar update on fingerprinting, this time for pawn shop employee licensing. In Section 85.420, we'd specify that if pawn shops hold purchase items for less than 20 days under an agreement with local law enforcement, they would need to maintain a copy of the agreement. This would help our staff ensure compliance with the hold period requirement. In Section 85.421, we'd update the language on providing information to consumers. This information is currently posted on our website as a brochure. We'd remove some language suggesting that the OCCC provides each new pawn shop with a display and printed materials. We're interested in pre-comments on whether it's feasible to list other methods of disclosing the information, like in-store displays, links on a website, maybe a tablet by the cash register. The goal is to make sure that the information is conspicuous and visible to consumers, and we're open to the idea that this doesn't need to be necessarily a paper brochure. But before we finalize this language, we'd really like to hear some comments from pawn shops and any other stakeholders on methods that might make this feasible. So any comments from stakeholders on any alternative possible methods of displaying this information, whether that's some kind of electronic tablet or other printed methods, in addition to the printed brochure that's been used in the past, we're really interested in getting pre-comments on that issue. In Section 85.422, we'd make technical changes relating to unclaimed property and escheat of unclaimed funds to the state to update a statutory reference and a reference to the unclaimed property division of the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. In Section 85601, the changes relate to our review of a licensed applicant's criminal history. The amendments include technical corrections and updates to citations based on HB 1342 from 2019. We did receive an advance informal comment on the rule review addressing two other issues that aren't in this pre-comment draft. The issues were the authority of a pawn shop during a disaster declaration and selling inventory at locations other than the pawn shop. Regarding the first issue, our understanding was that that was outside of the scope of OCCC rulemaking and might be addressed in emergency orders of the governor or attorney general opinions. And then regarding the second issue of off-site inventory sales, we understood that that was addressed already by Section 371-153C of the Finance Code, which requires pawn shops to notify the OCCC of other locations where they do business. And so although we don't currently plan to move forward with rule amendments on those issues, we do understand and recognize that those are important issues, and we welcome any feedback that stakeholders might have on those issues. So that's the summary of the draft amendments. Here's a proposed timeline for the rule amendments. You can see that we're requesting informal pre-comments by next Tuesday, May 31st. We intend to propose the amendments at the Finance Commission's June 24th meeting. There will be an official comment period during the month of July. We'd present the rules for adoption at the Finance Commission's August meeting, and the rules would be effective in early October. This is, of course, just a tentative timeline, and all of this is subject to the Finance Commission's approval of the rules. So with that, I've summarized the rule action, and I will open things up to comments on the rule amendments. Again, there are two ways to provide your feedback through this webinar. First, you can type your comment out and send it to us through the webinar's question feature, or if you're on a computer with a mic, there should be a function allowing you to raise your hand. And if you have a longer written question, feel free to type a quick message into the question field and go to webinar. Just say you have a longer message and are typing it out, and we can note that to give you some time to type the longer message. So I'm showing that we don't currently have any written questions or hand raises at this time. Again, you can use the hand raise feature or type something into the questions field if you have a question or comment you'd like to make. Okay, still not seeing anything. Just to be sure, I will wait for about a minute to see if we get any hand raises or questions. Again, if you have a longer question, feel free to type in a quick message and we can wait for you. Okay, waited about a minute. I still don't see any hand raises or questions, but we will still have an opportunity to provide written pre-comments. So I want to thank everyone who joined us. Again, rule updates are available on our website, and we will be posting the audio of this webinar as well. We are accepting written pre-comments on these rules until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, May 31st. Please email those to me at rule.comments@occc.texas.gov, which is our email address for rule comments. I want to thank everyone for attending. Please be safe out there, and we will see you next time. Thank you.